All right, so today we're going to do a Path of Exile 2 beginners review of the game. A lot of the reviews I've seen have been pretty in-game stuff, and I wanted to talk to a beginner and get their input on the game and just hear what they liked, what they didn't like, because I think we really want to focus on getting new players in the game, and I think getting feedback from someone that doesn't play like the T15 maps and is kind of new is going to be awesome. So this is Kaylee. I'm Cobbled. Do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Kaylee. I am studying software engineering at the moment. I've been playing games pretty much my whole life. I was a big FIFA 2003 fan as a kid. In my teens, I loved Skyrim, and in my later life, like Stardew Valley, and slowly trickling into ARPGs.
Nice. And
The whole gamut.
like specifically, what is your favorite game of all time?
I'd say Skyrim is probably one of the best games I've played.
Nice. And what class did you play when you played Skyrim?
Stealth Archer.
What
So
what was that gameplay like?
oh, it's super fun. You just get to sneak around, and if you're in sneak mode, you throw your bow and one shot someone from a rooftop or something,
Nice.
you know.
Yeah, so Kaylee
Yeah.
always plays archers in every
Yeah.
RPG that she plays. I've
Or
noticed.
fantasy game if I have the option.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so a little background on me. I am a software engineer. I've been at it for like 9 years developing. I've interviewed with Grinding Gear Games and met Jonathan when I was down in New Zealand. And I'm very, very passionate about ARPGs. I have played Diablo 2 since I was like 6 years old. We got Diablo 1 on a gateway PC, played that. Diablo 2, we had the little guidebook that I'd read on the school bus from home, and we have just played that game so many hours. I don't even want to know how many hours of that game I've played. I played PoE1 at my job as a software, or not at my job, but at my job as a software engineer. I had a friend that also was into RPGs, and he was like, "Have you played PoE1?" I was like, "I've heard of it, but I never tried it." And then I gave it a shot, and just like absolutely loved it. It was like I was not a fan of D3 and D4, and when I played PoE1, I was like, "This is like the true sequel to Diablo 2."
Mhm.
So I just loved it. I didn't come back every league, just because it's so much time and I like to do outdoor stuff. But I really love the game. And as you know, PoE2 has come out December 6th, and I just think we are in the period to give them feedback on the game. And like I said before, like a lot of beginners haven't been able to speak. And so I thought this was a perfect opportunity to talk to a gamer who's not necessarily super into ARPGs, but like enjoys this game, you know. So we're going to talk today
Mhm.
about all the things PoE2. So as I mentioned, the purpose is we're going to try to provide feedback, and we're going to provide a review from a beginner's perspective, sticking to like sticking points or quitting points in the game. Um, So we're just gonna try to like figure out what you liked about it and what you didn't like about it, and what we can do to improve. So, what are your overall impressions of PoE2? Like, what is your favorite part about the game?
My favorite part would probably be playing slowly and with a party. I think that's those two elements are super fun to me. Like the bosses are so fun, especially like the early access, like the first week. I'd say that has probably been some of the most fun so
And
far.
are you a Dark Souls player?
No, I've attempted to play it, but didn't make it far at all. It's not necessarily my type of gameplay, but I'm not opposed to giving it giving it a shot.
What's your least favorite part about PoE2 since you played it? Because you told me like about 80 hours in the game now, you said.
Yep. Yeah, and I've
Um,
seen all the patches come out and
yeah, you
all of
played
that.
like day one, December 6th,
Yeah.
early access when it came out, right? So you were in the
Yep.
queue waiting to get in. Um,
Yeah.
and I would say 80 hours is probably enough to find things that you also don't like about the game. Like, is there a part that you don't like so far, or like has just made you feel like you don't want to jump on?
Um, Loot management would probably be one of them. Too much loot drop. And then the respecking a new character, getting to a point where your character can't progress anymore from the campaign onto Cruel and maps. So I'd say um, having your character hit a brick wall with their power and having
Um,
to respect.
so yeah, go through like what all characters do you have right now?
Yeah, I have I think four characters. Um, Level 56 mercenary, got a couple early like a witch and then a ranger and just started a hardcore monk last night.
Nice.
So
Um, like, did you follow a build guide or did you make your character from scratch?
the very first character with the mercenary I did from scratch. And I think that was the only one that I did from scratch because of the rest kind of followed a build guide. Not to a T, but kind of picked up stuff from those. But yeah, the mercenary was from scratch up until I hit Cruel Act 1.
So what happened like when you went, because you said you started doing a build guide like right when you hit Cruel for the mercenary. What was that like?
It was tedious and just didn't feel like I was playing the game anymore, more so than just like copying someone else's homework and just doing so I could continue to play the game. Because if I didn't do that, then I feel like I wouldn't be able to play the game anymore.
Yeah, because you felt like your power level wasn't really high at that point. So,
Yeah, I couldn't get through mobs hardly at all
which is an
with
interesting
my
experience
campaign.
because I think like a lot of people said when they hit Cruel, they just started sweeping the game, but you had the exact opposite thing happen where you got to Cruel and you felt like you did no damage at all, but you were playing in a party with that mercenary the entire time, right?
Yeah, yeah, true.
So then you were kind of playing solo around Cruel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's probably a huge factor too,
Yeah.
honestly.
You've pretty much only played in parties, right? When you play, like that's your favorite aspect of the game is actually having like people play with you, not just like solo grinding.
Yeah, that's my preferred way of playing ARPGs, I guess, in
Um,
general.
and okay, so like I want to delve into that a little bit more. So you said that um, you had to switch to using a build guide, and that kind of took a lot of the fun out of the game for you because you wanted to have like a unique character that you built from scratch.
Yeah.
And what can you tell me about the mercenary? Like what build did you go with out of from scratch? Like what did you come up with?
From scratch, he was a physical bleeding affliction build, I believe. So I think I would just shoot physical arrows, and then they would cause the monsters to bleed, and then I'd throw down a ballista, and then I'd throw shock grenades as well. All because I found that unique armor that had the affliction on bleeding,
Yeah,
pretty
so
much.
basically the reason you went bleeding is because you found armor that was specific to bleed, and then you're like, I'm gonna make my
Yeah,
build around this and try to make it interesting. And I
yeah, because like
remember,
right off the bat, I found that unique, like first mini boss that I played in Clearfell, the wolf, I think it was. So like really early on, I found that unique armor.
Yeah, and I remember actually looking at your tree and trying to help you find like some, because I was playing in a party with her, and I was trying to help you find some good like bleeding affliction stuff on that tree, and it really didn't feel like there was much for bleeding. It was all like stun based stuff, or you could go
Hmm.
lightning, but like I noticed that like you trying to get creative there seemed to be difficult just because that passive tree kind of filtered you down like a different path, even though you didn't necessarily want to go down that path. I think that's what's funny
Yeah,
is like the kind of like off kilter builds are kind of difficult, even though bleeding bow is not that weird. Like you can definitely make that happen. Um, it's just a lot more difficult to do because like most people are running like grenades, or they're running
elemental.
shock. Yeah. Um,
Yeah, and there's only like two support gems that really worked for bleeding for
yeah,
my guy at the time. Like not much support gems.
definitely. And not only that, but like I mean, it is early access, so there might be more support gems like around those style of builds. But yeah, I would say like right now, like you almost got punished for going bleeding, but you wanted
Yeah,
to because you got that unique armor that took you down that path.
yeah, and I thought that was cool.
Yeah. That's interesting because I think some people like don't like the freedom of creating a build when they first play PoE. They're like overwhelmed by the passive tree and like the skill gems and the support gems is too much to read. So they're just like, I don't really want to deal with this. I'm just gonna like follow someone's guide, so I don't really have to like think. I can just like kill monsters and know that my build will be good. Do
Hmm.
you enjoy that aspect of like trying to get creative with the build?
A little bit. It can be a bit overwhelming if you get brick walled and find yourself not doing as much damage as you'd like something, and then you kind of have to revert and start from scratch and start digging and reading, and which is fine. That's definitely part of the game, but um, fun to get creative with it for a little bit, and then once you hit that wall, it's a bit tedious.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you're one of the brave souls that's actually tried to do your own build. I would say a lot of people that get into the game just try to follow a build guide, but obviously, like December 6th, those build guides weren't really very complete until I feel like the last week you started to see ones that are like actually really good to follow. But before
Hmm.
that, it was just like really crappy guides that like didn't even have like weapons on them, and like they were missing a lot of key information. And they might even be outright wrong. There's been a lot of wrong information on those guides, so honestly, I think it's good on you doing that. I think that's a fun part of the game. But there's also a lot to read through, right? Like it's kind of like a dictionary of knowledge you need to read just to understand like how all the different support gems can interact with each other. How does it interact with your passive tree, your ascendancies? Like it's a very complicated game, even though they did present it in a more simple way this time.
Yeah, they did. It is a lot to retain for sure.
All right. So, let's talk about loot. What are your thoughts on the amount of loot that currently drops in the game, like as of today?
As of today, I'd say too much. I thought it was a lot more fun early access when like one or two pieces would drop every so monster, but now it's like almost every monster. I don't know, it's just like a lot of garbage collection and you have to manage and read, and it's a bit overwhelming. And then you have to, once you collect so much loot in your inventory, your stash fills up, then you have to keep running back to town like before you even make it to Red Veil. You go to town like 3 times just to deposit and currency your loot.
Yeah, which is interesting because like, all right, do you pick up like all non-white items early game?
Yeah, or as much as I can,
And
because I
that's
do
because,
understand the importance of the loot. Like, You
and
can
that's because
either
you want
sell
to
it for coin
disenchant,
or
right? Like you want to take that stuff
yeah,
to the disenchant and get it,
yeah.
yeah,
Get
get
that
your
currency
orbs
built
or
up
get,
and
yeah. Especially because you just said you started a hardcore character, so like you don't have any currency.
right.
Yeah.
So that's kind
Um,
of fun.
God, I think that's so fascinating that you like less loot drops because that's a very unpopular opinion within the community. Like, if anything, the biggest complaint I saw day one and day two was I hate the dodge roll because I get surrounded and there's not enough loot dropping.
Hmm.
And I think the only streamer I saw that actually didn't mind the way the loot was before they buffed it was Kripparrian. And he plays Ruthless, right? And so that that makes sense to me, right? Like they basically released PoE2 in Ruthless mode. If you don't know what Ruthless is from PoE2, they added an extra mode on top of PoE1 that was you could play solo self-found hardcore Ruthless, and in theory that would be the hardest possible thing you could do beyond a gauntlet, which is like a challenge league. And Ruthless was just like less items drop constantly. Like so when you actually found a rare in Ruthless, it was like amazing. Like if you got a rare weapon, like you were good. And it made like all the bosses harder. It made everything harder because like really the difficult in the game scales off of how good your items are. And if less items drop, you don't have as good of items. And so I agree because my experience doing Act 2, um, I got to the Dreadnought. It was super, super hard to get through. And then I got to Jamanra, however you say it.
Hmm.
And I was like using a unique staff as a sorceress that was the one that shoots raging spirits automatically. It's like the Voltaxic staff or whatever. And it was only a level 6. So I was like, I could have found level 8 gems and just used that, but I was using the staff because it would auto shoot the, or sorry, not raging spirits, it shoots Ember Fuselage. And it was just like so hard to kill this boss. Like I did no damage to this boss, and you were there with me. Like we tried
Hmm.
it like probably like 10 to 15 times and both our characters just completely sucked because like we were still wearing like magic items in some cases at the end of Act
Hmm.
2 and we had no resistances to lightning at all and like you just like really had to focus on every stage. It was like you needed to know all the boss choreography, like everything down to a T, and even then,
Yeah.
like your damage is so crappy and your potions like would barely sustain. So if you didn't have a potion that would like recharge over time instead of from killing
Yeah. That's
monsters, you would
crucial.
just like run out. And I thought that was so fun because like every time you hit the potion, you're like, damn it, I screwed up. Like I had to use a potion right there. And then
Yeah.
this after they dropped the patch that made it so that there was more loot, like I went and did the Act 2 boss with another group of friends and it was just like the
It's like first
easiest thing in
try.
the entire world. Like it was not difficult whatsoever. And
Hmm.
so I don't know. I was actually kind of bummed to see that loot patch too because I think people like jumped the gun on complaining about that and I think before you ask GGG to change something, like you should probably let something just like sit there for a couple weeks and like just give it a shot the way it is first.
Hmm.
I know I'm gonna get some flack on that, but I'm also a ruthless player, so that's probably why. I already don't like a ton of loot anyways, and it's for the same reason as you. Like, I just don't like needing to install a loot filter in the game. Like, I think the
Hmm.
game should give you meaningful drops, and I think that's possible, especially if you consider like Zizarin's tier system that he proposed that he's wanted for the last 10 years. It's like if you just had drops be more meaningful, but less of them, I think that'd be a lot better for new players because I mean, when there's just crap dropping out of every monster, like they just don't know what to focus on, right? Like they have to be
Yeah.
their own filter, and a lot of people just don't know what to look for. I'm not saying smart loot. I definitely think you should find loot for other characters, and I think that's fun to like try to go make another character because you found something cool for that character. But I think
Totally.
like you can make the drops from a higher area drop like better tiers. So what he said was tiered items for that. So
Hmm, that'd be cool.
yeah. So I mean like let's say like you're doing a tier 15 map, you might get a higher tier item, you'll get better rolls on it. And actually I haven't gotten super far into maps, but you do find like tiered items. But I believe it's just a higher base. I don't think it's actually the tier systems Izarin proposed, but I would like to hear from someone, get an explanation on those two things. But
Hmm.
anyways, yeah, that was a deep dive into loot. Do you feel like you need to use the loot filter in the game?
Not yet, but I think if we continue to play in parties of 3 people or more, then maybe. And possibly for endgame. I'm not sure. I haven't made it that far. I hope
You're
not to, though. I want
you're
to
in
avoid that.
you're in Act 1 Cruel, right? That's as far as you've
Right.
gotten? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and when you play in a party like 4, there is a lot of loot dropping,
Hmm.
but it's usually exciting loot because it's higher rarity.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you're all trying to grab it at the same time,
Yeah, it is
which
pretty
is very
fun when
fun.
someone runs past an exalted orb and they didn't see it and it's grayed out, and then
Yeah.
two people see it and you run up to it and try to click it as fast as you can, and then it's like up to
Yeah.
RNG, whoever got the exalted orb,
Yeah.
whoever has
I
the
do
better
enjoy that.
server connection. Yeah, it's so fun.
It's pretty funny.
Um, as far as the party play, now that we're on the subject, like, is there anything about party play that you don't like?
There's a lot of commotion on the screen. It's like everybody's spells and projectiles are just going everywhere, so you can hardly even see what you're shooting at. It's just pretty bright. And yeah, I'd say probably that's about it. It's just all the chaos, which is kind of fun, but at the same time, I like to see what I'm doing a little bit and be able to evade an attack or even be able to aim at what I'm trying to shoot at.
Yeah, because you're absolutely right. Like, because right now we're in a party and I'm an infernalist, so I've got flame walls everywhere. There's minions throwing gas grenades.
Yeah.
Brian is a spark mage. We're in hardcore like level 12, so like we have very basic skills right now. But I put the flame wall down. He shoots sparks through the flame wall, and then you're a monk and you shoot the ice spike into there to freeze them while we're like electrocuting them
Hmm.
and turning them on fire, and it's great. But it's also really hard to see when you're fighting a boss like that because
Yeah.
there's just so much like ground crap happening that like you can't tell the difference between a spell that's from your party member
Yeah.
versus a spell that's from the boss because it looks exactly the same. So like if you're a flame wall
Yeah.
guy, there is a boss somewhere in Act 2 that also casts flame walls, and it's like, is this my flame wall? And then you just like look at your health and see that it's just like melting, and you're like, oh shit, that's not my spell right there.
Yeah. That could I get caught up in that all the time. I
Yeah,
get confused.
I mean, in hardcore, it might kill us actually. Like if there's like
Probably.
something that like if the purple crap that comes up to you from the rare monsters,
Hmm.
those little balls that follow you around, like it's so easy not to see that with all the spells happening and just die from it.
Yeah.
Like,
Totally.
and I don't think people enjoy that. Like, I don't think anyone likes dying from something they can't see, you know?
Yeah.
Like, if you die from like a big slam, like one of the red slams from the bosses, it's like, okay, he gave you good choreography and told you that that was going to happen and you ignored it and didn't dodge roll. And I think that feels
Yeah.
good to die to because it's like very well choreographed and like avoidable. But like there are
Hmm.
definitely some rare monsters that have some mods that it's like I can see what even killed me. Like there's just like some pool of blood under me and I'm just like getting melted and didn't notice, you know?
Yeah.
Especially if you're an energy shield build too, because like if you have the bar above your head turned on in the settings, like that little energy shield slice is so tiny that like you have to actually keep an eye on the bottom left to actually see your health
Hmm.
constantly, which um I mean you should always do, but sometimes I like kind of days off, it's an ARPG.
Hmm.
Um Cool. Yeah, I think they could add like transparency onto your party members' spells or something like that, like where you can still see them, but they're not like,
Down a little bit.
yeah, like you could kind of, it's if you just like upped the opacity on it so you kind of see through them, I think that would help a lot. Or maybe even have the option to completely turn them off. But right now, there's really cool synergies between the party where, like I said, I can put a flame wall down and then Brian shoots sparks through it, and he doesn't even have to cast flame wall because I'm already casting it for my
Hmm.
minions that are throwing grenades on it. So it's like really fun in a party of four to have like, hey, what are you doing for your build? Because we should like do this and synergize. Like if I curse him with flammability and you already do fire damage, then like we'll all do
Yeah.
more fire damage, right? Like,
Yeah, you collab and then become a team.
yeah, it's cool. I actually really love that, and it's fun. And I think they did a good job also on scaling the monsters to be harder when you're in a party. Like I felt like they pretty much
Yeah.
got that perfect minus. I will say when we were struggling with the Act 2 boss originally, I went back and fought him solo with the
Hmm.
same, like I didn't change anything about my character and I beat him first try and then I went back to play in a party with you and tried to kill him and like we could just not kill him together. Like he had such a massive health pool. But then like I said, after they up the loot drops, now I go to that boss and he's just like 2 seconds. Like he's hardly
Hmm.
in that final stage where like the portals are open shooting the knives out, for very long at
Yeah.
all because you do so much more damage now. So I really wish they wouldn't have done that loot buff because I enjoy suffering and having crappy items, and I actually think that's what's fun is like the stages where you have crappy stuff. Like I think the start of the game for me has been the most fun so far for that reason.
Hmm. Same. And then you get to actually enjoy the bosses for what they were like built to be. You
Yeah.
get to
And
see
like the
their phases all
monsters
the way
too.
through.
Like even some of the monsters have some choreography, like
They do,
um
yeah.
like I'm trying to think of some specific ones. Like in Utsal, there's a bunch of guys that have really cool choreography, where like you can see that their stuff is coming, right? And like being able to dodge roll and see it. But I would say later in the game, it seems to be that the monster packs become so dense that like there's really no choreography. It's just like there's like 400 projectiles being shot at you, and it's just like
Yeah.
you pretty much either need to blow them up or they're going to blow you up at a certain point. Like, and that's one thing I don't like is this the pace of the game goes from like 0 to 100, and I think it's because of
Hmm.
movement speed. I think it's because of really good items, and I think that like all that stuff should be harder to obtain.
Yeah.
So I got here the next topic. Let's talk about dodge roll. So like, do you like the dodge roll?
I do. Like the mechanic of it itself,
Yeah, like, do you think it's a good
naturally.
addition to the game? Do you like it?
Yeah, I do. It's fun. I love timing dodge roll attacks or dodge roll. Um, yeah, like when a monster is gonna kill you, and then you time it and dodge roll out of the way. That's
Yeah,
satisfying.
it's like in the tutorial boss. Like, that's actually pretty fun where they teach you it with the big slam. Like, I like those kind of dodge rolls, but
Hmm.
um, like, what are your thoughts on dodge rolling pre-patch and post-patch? Because you played the first 2 days, like when dodge roll wouldn't dodge through enemies, like they were just walls, right?
Yeah, they just like charge at you and push you up against the wall, and you had no fate, pretty much, of getting out of there.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know if I have like such a heavy opinion on dodge roll. I'd go either way is fine, honestly. I think pre-patch it was maybe a little bit more interesting because you did have to strategize a bit more and kind of self like pace yourself and play the game a little more slowly and strategically versus just running down a hallway and knowing that you'll be safe for.
I don't know if you've got this feeling, but like post-patch, I feel like it made the game significantly easier and no one like acknowledged it that you can dodge roll through everything now because All right, obviously the big one is the beetles and Keth that people were complaining about. You walk down the hallway and beetles
Yeah.
surround you and you just get stun locked and die. Like, all right, I get it. Like, they're using the argument, like, why shouldn't I be able to roll over a little stupid beetle? It's like, maybe I get that for smaller monsters, but like, I really do think like it's more just the way that you had to play when you could get surrounded made the game feel dangerous. Like, it just felt hard,
Mm-hmm.
because like it
True.
was somewhat punishing to die even in softcore because you'd have to redo the whole map. And like, dude, the Valley of the Titans, we were dying a lot when we got there. I don't know if you
Oh
remember that
yeah,
map, but like the
I
like
do.
whirlwinds that would fly
Yeah,
around and stuff, like,
that that was
dude,
crazy.
like, cause like pre dodge roll, because I want to say they patched dodge roll right after we got to Act 3,
Mm-hmm.
and that was like so memorable for me because you had to play so strategically. Like, you'd walk up a little bit and like stop and like see if like anything's gonna like jump down from the cliff on you and stuff. And
Yeah.
like, it just felt more fun like when there was like super danger. Like, you play way slower though. You get less loot. The game
Mm-hmm.
goes way slower playing that. And like, I feel like that feedback that people gave on the dodge roll was just like mostly from like just wanting to go faster and faster, and it's like, this is taking too long. And like, I get it. The game does take a really long time, especially if you want to get to pinnacle boss. But
Yeah.
like, I just think like mechanically the game felt better with dodge roll the way it was. And like, there's literally one other streamer that has the same opinion, and that would be like Talkative Try, and everyone just like shits on him for it. But like, I guarantee I'm not the only person that like thought that that was kind of fun. Oh, also, there's a bug after the dodge roll change. In the Tomb of the Consort and the Tomb of the Praetor, there are two bosses there that cast a bone wall around you.
Oh right. Yeah.
That used to be gnarly. Like, you would get
Yeah.
you if you didn't break the wall down, if you didn't have enough damage to shoot the wall down, or like you shot the boss or something stupid instead of the wall, he would just like dump these like projectiles on your head and you would instantly die. And so like in
Mm-hmm.
hardcore, that boss would actually be like kind of scary. Like, if you were just like trying him for the first time and you got bone walled. But now you actually just dodge roll and you just like glitch through the wall, because like I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure that that's a bug, and I'm sure GGG will fix that. But it's like, I don't want the dodge roll negating mechanics like of the game. Like, that boss is super easy now because,
Yeah.
I mean, I guess he was always super easy, but like the only attack that's even like relatively dangerous are the green circles that like follow you around, and that one's really easy to avoid with movement speed. So I don't know. I feel like I'm not a fan of like making dodge roll easier, because now, like, I've heard you say this as well. Like, do you like, I've played in a party with you and you like dodge roll past monsters now and not even fight them.
Yeah.
Like,
I've been victim to that.
yeah, so like, tell me about that. Like, did you get sick of clearing like entire maps and eventually we're just like, I'm just gonna kind of skip some of this?
Yeah. I guess that would be the only reason why I would dodge roll past monsters and try and look for the next place.
Yeah, because
Just
you probably realize at some point like it's probably better to get to the higher area level and do it quicker.
yeah,
Um,
to find
and
better loot.
like, would you say the dodge roll the way it was before, like you couldn't even do that? I don't think you could do
No.
that and survive.
No way.
You would die like immediately.
You'd have to clear the whole map first before
Yeah,
you felt safe.
yeah, and now I actually literally feel like I could not kill a single monster and I could dodge roll my way entirely to a door. Like,
Yeah, I've
assuming
done
your
that.
character is not like super squish where they get one hitted by or one shotted by a monster, but like, I do think it's really lame that you could just use really high movement speed and dodge roll to get through an entire map without killing a monster, potentially.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I feel like that defeats what they were going for there. So,
Yeah, just in general, slower is just a little bit better. It's a little more fun, a little bit more easy to digest, just as a whole,
totally. Because if you speed up the characters, then you have to speed up the monsters, and then it's like you either have to
right?
blow up the whole screen or the monsters will just swarm you and you die. Like when it
Hmm.
gets to the faster paces, and I think like less monsters and more tactical combat is so much fun. I mean, because like active block, right? You can hold down block and he holds up the
Hmm.
shield like this. It's really cool concept, but like late game, it's like kind of stupid. Like you don't ever block a monster. Like you're not gonna. There's no like parry concept in the game. It's more just like you're an infernalist. You cast a flame wall and then you just hold block in case something hits you. So it's not like
Hmm.
tactical like it could be. And I think they could do something really cool with that, to where like I don't know, maybe you could like parry a boss with it or something. Like you could do some really
Yeah.
badass stuff with that concept, but I
Is
feel like
active block is active block a new thing to PoE2?
yeah. Yeah, no. You could
Oh, okay.
not
I didn't
hold.
know that.
God, I'm gonna get flamed if that's not true. But yeah, from my understanding, that's a new concept to PoE2. Like you used to hold a
Hmm.
shield, but it was passive block, and now you have
Oh, okay.
active and passive block. And active block is when you actually raise your shield and hold it. And so yeah, I just think there's some like really cool stuff they could do with that.
Yeah,
Um,
parrying would be cool.
yeah,
Doing a successful block and seeing the monster like stutter back.
dude, I want to say it's not in PoE1, but if it is, I'm just stupid. I never play shield builds. I always play a sorceress or
Oh
a
yeah.
ranger every time, so I don't know anything about like
Oh
the
yeah.
warrior builds and stuff, but I don't believe so. But anyways, my point stands that like there's some really cool things I think you could do with that if you had the combat be more tactical. Like
Totally.
what if you what all right, so like let's say that like a boss shoots like a beam at you. What if you had it to where like if you parried it like you can in Valheim, um, or like any game that you can parry, like maybe you could like reflect the beam at the boss or something, or like like
That'd be
maybe there's
great.
like cool stuff you could do. That'd probably be
Yeah.
super OP after a while, but like it'd be cool to be like have some cool things you could do. Yeah, or like maybe any projectile you get, you could just parry it and it reflects it back at him. Like it'd be so cool.
Yeah. That'd be wild.
Okay, so we already kind of touched on this a little bit, but I wanted to talk about movement speed. Do you think that increased movement speed is like a good mechanic for the game? Because I know you've like heard some of the meta and you followed some of that stuff, but like, do you think it's good that boots like absolutely have to have movement speed or that it's not a good boot? Like, do you think that's a good mechanic?
No, because I feel like the theme of this is slower is better, and if we just keep stacking movement speed, then then the dodge roll wouldn't even really come into play anymore because you could just run away, and then you'd never use dodge roll again.
Totally. And
Or
I'm just in utter agreement with you on that. Is like I've stacked movement speed on my ranger to be like in the 40s or 50s. She's only in cruel right now. But there are so many boss mechanics that I can just like avoid without dodge rolling because I can move so quickly around the outside of the boss map. And I just think
Mhm.
it's stupid. Like I think it's dumb that I can out movement speed its mechanic. Like I want to have to dodge roll at the right time if that's how you wanted the game to play. Like
Yeah,
I don't know. I just feel
it's
like it's like a
satisfying.
yeah, it's satisfying to do. It's scarier in hardcore because if there's something that
Yeah,
you absolutely have to dodge roll in hardcore, you're gonna die. It's like kind of gnarly and fun. It's like when the boss does this attack, if you don't dodge roll at the right time, you are going to die, right? Like,
hmm
and then like with movement speed, it's like, if you're too close to him, you're gonna die, but you could just stay on the outside of the map and just like avoid him with movement speed. Specifically, Jamonra's big like slam thing that does a ton of damage. If you just stand on the outside with a ton of movement speed,
yeah,
you actually don't even have to roll to avoid that one, which I thought was really stupid. Like, because that was for me, that was the hardest one to time at first because he like pauses a little bit before he slams. So
yeah.
it was like kind of fun to learn the timing of that.
Oh, totally.
And
And
like the poetry and the Act One boss where he's like doing the poem while the wolves are like all eating you and then he like jumps
oh
through the
yeah,
ring. Like I love the timing on that, how it's like like I
Like a
count
keyword.
like one, two, roll, and then like the wolf rolls through, and I still kind of suck
Yeah.
at it, but it's like really fun.
Yeah, it's so fun.
I think it's just stuff like that. Like I think the boss battles are the best part of the whole game. Like
Hmm. Agreed.
I think that's all we need more of is just like make tons of bosses. Like I don't know.
Yeah. I'm sure
Um,
they will.
I think they will too. I think they know they killed it with bosses. Like people just love it. Um,
But I also get movement speed as a way of defense. Like if you don't have any energy shield and you don't have a way of defending yourself, then you do need a way to evade and get away. But maybe just have it so you can't like stack it or make it too OP. I'm not sure.
I'm not. I don't think I want them to remove movement speed from the game, but I
It makes
am.
sense. Like every boot in almost every game has movement speed on the boot.
Well, it's the same thing in Diablo 2 too, right? Like your boots have to have movement speed on them in Diablo 2, or else they're terrible boots, basically. Like movement speed is
Hmm.
massive in Diablo 2 as well. And I guess what I'm really against in RPGs is like I don't enjoy when there's only one stat on an item that you absolutely have to have, and every other stat is useless except for that stat. Right? Like I could get boots.
True.
This has happened to me. Like I found boots that had like 150 life, 150 mana, um, and like resistances, but they didn't have movement speed. And I was like, dude, these are like godly boots, but
Hmm.
I can't give up 35 movement speed to wear those. And so you put them up in the market, nobody buys them in trade, which trade is another topic we need to talk about soon. But anyways, it's I just think whenever you have a stat that's that powerful, like you need to like reconsider it. Like maybe it's something that you get through the passive tree and everyone gets the same amount, but like I think it's very bad that it's both in the passive tree and it's on boots right now. And possibly there's like anointments you could use to get it as well. I don't know. I haven't gotten that far in the game, but I just think it's a crappy thing to like
Yeah.
have to have, right? Like I don't
Yeah,
know.
totally. Your
It's the
point.
same thing with rarity right now. Like they're saying in maps, like T15 maps, it's like you need to have a ton of rarity on your items. And if you do, you get like tons of divine orbs per breach, and it's just like that shouldn't work that way. You can have rarity in the game, but it shouldn't affect currency, just like in Diablo 2. Like Diablo 2 already did rarity with Magic Find correctly. Like
Mm.
you can increase your chance of getting unique items and rares, but like it should not affect if a jaw rune drops, right?
Right.
Like that currency is just too valuable for that. So yeah, I think anywhere where they have a stat that you must have, and you could even argue that like life and mana is one of those stats too. It's hard to say. I mean,
Yeah, it's a big rabbit hole. I feel like
yeah, this is a
if you
big
get down.
design decision. I think they'll. I have faith that
Yeah.
they're going to do the right thing. I think they already know. I mean, this is kind of the same thing everyone's been saying, but nobody's been talking about movement speed, and that was a topic that we're talking about. That I think people just want it to be faster and faster. They're like, just give me more movement speed, make it a
Yeah, and I've
implicit
done
on
the
the boot.
opposite.
And I'm like, dude, no, don't make it an implicit on the boot. Like, God, I don't know. I just think cut down movement speed like in half and then make combat more
Sure.
tactical. Like, I think beginners will like that a lot better because, like, that's what I've noticed is like the game at the start is more fun. And then, like, the faster and faster it gets, like, those people start to be like, oh, this is kind of like Diablo 4. You're just like murdering everything on the screen and
Yeah, loot and scooting.
um but I shouldn't say that because it's nothing like Diablo 4. Even the end game is infinitely better, but you know what I mean? Like people don't like the ARPGs just because like they're too fast in the end game. Like you were telling me,
Yeah.
like tell me what did you think when you saw Zizaran playing PoE 1 like the first time you saw his end game play?
I couldn't even register what I was seeing. There's just like lights everywhere, and I was even like, is he even playing a game right now? Like, what is he even like aiming at? What is his goal? It was just so hectic. Like, when I saw that, I was like, I hope I don't get to that point because I would not enjoy that.
Didn't you say like it looked like an epilepsy waiting to happen?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's so funny.
Yeah, it's a bit too much for me. I'm sure there's some people that really enjoy that, but coming from like a story mode type of player, I like the chill, like self-pace your way through.
You know what's funny is Mr. Llama SC is a really big Diablo 2 streamer, and he likes PoE a lot, but he criticizes PoE 1 for being like you walk through the door and the whole screen blows up like that epilepsy stuff, which is totally true.
Mhm.
But then they released the Mosaic build in Diablo
Yeah,
2, and I remember playing that build was like, dude, this is exactly the same thing as PoE 2, where I walk in the door and I kick once, and the
yeah,
entire cow level just melts. Like everything on the screen just gets chain lightning and dies, and it's like, I
totally.
wonder if he
Maybe
actually
that's just
likes
an
this build.
ARPG thing.
I think there's like a god, like people want to be gods in the game, and like it definitely
Hmm.
feels good to get to that point, but like I think right now in PoE 2 you get to that point too soon. Like people are feeling
Yeah,
like
it hasn't
god
even been out for a
level.
month yet, you know.
Yeah, like I think you should have like the top 0.001% of people able to get to that point, but like I think like you need to find a headhunter, you need to find like all the craziest gear, and then you've won the game, but like I don't think it should just be like I've just got a bunch of really good rares that I got for one exalt and like still melt the screen, right? Like
Hmm.
um and I think part of that's back to the rarity problem where the market's just like everything's so cheap right now. Um because of that. So it's like a really freaking good rare and softcore is just like super easy to get right now. Um
Yeah,
so let's go to what's your when with skill gems, was that intuitive for you? Like, cause you played PoE 1
kinda.
a little, like I think I helped you a lot with that game, like
Yeah, I
putting your
did.
gems in and
I-
stuff.
Yeah,
You did the skill gems yourself this time. Like, what did you think of it? Like, did it make sense?
not entirely, because when they have you do the skill gem in the tutorial, you're kind of still like fighting those zombie guys a little bit, so you don't actually have the time to stop there and read about it. I mean, I guess you can because it's so slow, but I don't know, you collect so many skill gems and you're like, what do I do with all these? So then you just start buying whatever sounds good, and it could just be complete trash for your character. But so I just bought like a gauntlet of gems and did not know what to do with them because I
So
didn't know really where to start.
you're
Like I didn't
basically
know if I
saying
wanted to
like
be a
you
lightning
got
build. Like
you
I didn't
said
know what type of element I wanted to do or projectile or grenade. Like so, it was just like a free for all.
so you're saying like you basically like got a bunch of level skill 1 gems and you just like picked every single recommended one, put it in your tree, and then
Hmm.
like did you have enough buttons to like map all those skills?
No, I think I had almost like all of them filled at one point, like when I first started playing.
Which that's insane because I haven't ever filled my skill gems even on like my level 79 character.
Yeah, I mean we fixed that pretty quick, but if I didn't have somebody to tell me like you should probably redo all this, who knows what I would have done, like continuing through the game.
Totally. I feel like they've done a better job with the skill gems, but like I also feel like there are some things that are just so badly explained still. Like, for example, Lazy Peon brought this up. I think he got the maps. and he had a bunch of spirit gem stuff like Herald of Ice because he's a ice invoker monk, and he didn't right click the skill. So like he wasn't
Oh,
reserving his spirit for that skill. I had this happen too. And luckily
yeah.
it
That was
was mine was SRS, Summon Raging Spirits. And like eventually like I was like, why the hell aren't there skulls? Like I was like reading the skill and then I would like cast something and skulls wouldn't go out and I was like, why is this happening? And then I just like hovered over it and then it was like right click to enable this skill and I was like, oh my God. Like so you can
yeah,
have the skill slotted in your gems but you have to right click it to enable it and that is just not explained at all, especially like with the default interface your spirit's shown above your mana bubble if you hover
hmm
over it, but like first of all they don't explain spirit to new players at all, so it's
yeah.
like what is spirit, right? And
I
then
still don't really know what spirit is.
yeah like right
You know,
probably even right now like
like,
it took me a while to figure it out, like it made sense to me that it was the new system of reservation, but I was like, I don't know. It took me a while to figure it out that you had to right click it. Like,
yeah,
um,
it's funny.
so, but yeah, anyways, back to skill
Yeah.
jams. So, like, I think they did a good job on basic skills and having like videos that show you what the skill does before you cut it.
hmm
I guess it's like nice that you don't have to cut the gem, put it in, and then try it and see if you like it first. But I
Yeah,
mean,
the
they
fact
did.
that they have a video showing you is a huge step already.
Yeah, and I think all they need to do is like maybe do the same thing for support gems. And like I know it sounds like a stupid idea at first. It's like how the hell do you make a video for a support gem? But like
There's so many.
just like what if you just explained like how this gem could be used or like what situation you'd want to use this support gem in, right? Like obviously there's ones that would be really stupid, like the support gem for 25% faster cast rate, which I think is Unleash. Like, yeah, I don't need a video of a guy being like, you cast faster when you use this, right? Like, but there are
Yeah.
other gems that are like kind of confusing. And I think like just having like maybe even just like ideas how you could use it. Like maybe like a little video that shows you like, here's a showcase of Fireball with wild shards. And it shows like Fireball hitting the wall and all the fireballs shooting off the wall and stuff like that. Like,
hmm
I think stuff like that would be really helpful just because like that was always my problem in PoE1 is that like I just could not figure out what support gem worked with what skill. And it's still confusing to me that they design it in a way that like not every support gem can work with every skill. So it's like you just now you
Yeah,
can't
and they
slot
still
it
allow
in.
you to slot it.
That's actually not true. Like you can't put like strip away in a non-curse. So like there are gems that they don't even let you slot in, which is nice, so they made that better.
Oh,
But there are skill gems that you can put in that effectively make the skill worse. Like
yeah.
like
I'm sure I did that,
yeah.
you know.
And
Like
I
it
think
sounds good on paper, but then you put it in and you just didn't read any of the keywords or how it like interacts with your gear or something. And it's just null. Doesn't do anything.
totally. Yeah, and I don't know if I trust that little DPS counter next to the skill too. Like
That always trips me up. I see like low DPS and I'm like, well, I suck. Like, how can I not get this higher?
I think it's
Yeah.
wrong too. Like I noticed on the poison arrow ranger that I had, like it seemed like it was only showing me like the initial hit damage, but I did more damage with poison stacks after that. And so like there's just some concepts in the game that don't like they don't like equate well to DPS. Like I mean, I guess poison stacks would, but it's like if you show me my DPS is 800 damage, does that mean that I'm doing 800 damage per second once like the monster has 8 stacks of poison on it, or is it like just the hit does 800 damage and then I do more after that, right? Like
Ooh, yeah.
that number just sounds like horrible to calculate, but I get what they're going for there, but I don't like trust it still. Like,
Hmm. Yeah, I can't fully grasp that.
Um, let's see what else we got on the list to talk about. What about crafting? Do you like crafting in PoE2?
I do, but that's only because I have the currency tab, which is probably another thing you want to talk about. But I think the currency tab makes crafting really enjoyable, and I really enjoy looting, like finding currency as loot. I think that's super fun and satisfying, and turning your magic ring into a rare ring and it has like a bunch of resistances on it is a cool feeling to kind of roll and gamble a little bit.
Like, cause do you feel like you've ever played a game that had a system like that?
No, never. Besides like D2, but that's like I played that ARPG like right before
Well, even
PoE2 came
D2,
out.
the crafting system's like you put things in the Heraldric cube in like a random order, right? Like you put a perfect amethyst and like a amulet and some other junk, like a jewel, and then you make a crafted amulet. Versus like this game actually drops like currency that can modify items, which I find really interesting because if
Mm-hmm.
you get a rare in D2, you can't really modify it in any way. So like the fact that you can like stack on top of like a rare in this game really makes it interesting because rares have a lot of meaning in PoE versus like D2 is like all rune words basically. Um,
Mm-hmm.
couple uniques here and there, but like yeah, mostly rune words.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I
I
like the crafting.
yeah,
It
I
makes
like
it
it too.
fun because if I craft something good, then that means I don't have to go to the trade site, which is always a win for me. Because I'd rather not.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and like just finding currency feels good too. It's like yes, I got an exalt. Like it just feels
Yeah,
so
it's so
awesome.
satisfying.
Yeah, like they
Regal
somehow made
shard.
those orbs feel just very good to get, and like the little ding it makes when it drops is just so nice.
Hmm.
Uh,
Yeah, I love it.
Lazy Peon has a video I listened to last night where he's like murdering things with the ice monk, and like he's just like basically like all these like divine orbs drop, and he's like, "Oh, it feels so good," and like you can hear like the little ding and stuff, and he's like, "I've never been so addicted to an ARPG in my life."
Oh,
It's funny how those like audio cues that you can add to a game like really just like spike the dopamine just a little bit more, and they definitely do that with like a
totally.
divine orb or something, you know.
I've never even found a divine orb
I've only
yet.
found one, and that's I'm on like T11 maps, and I my character sucks.
Yeah.
And I have very little rarity as well. But we've been mostly playing the campaign over and over again. Like I could have grinded deep into the end game, but like I feel like for me it just wasn't that fun. Like I like playing in a party with you guys a lot more than
Hmm.
like going off by myself in maps. Like maybe if you guys were in maps, I would have more fun, but I don't know. It was interesting. Like there's some stuff in there that's interesting. I like that you craft to make your maps and stuff like that, but I think like all the boss mechanic stuff just went away. It's like where are the bosses, you know?
Yeah.
Like I need more bosses, and it's just like you fight rares. And I think rare monsters are actually like pretty lame overall. Like they don't really have super cool mechanics. Like the temporal bubble thing's kind of cool, like you got to get close to it. But
Hmm.
like I guess the magma barrier is kind of cool to look at, but like it doesn't have like choreographed mechanics. Like I would just like them to be more interesting. Like I'd rather just fight a boss than a rare every single time, I think.
Yeah.
You know, I know they can't do that. It's too much work, but like I think just bosses are the way to go.
Hmm.
What don't you like about crafting in PoE2?
What I don't like. Um, maybe that I don't have enough currency. Like I get so much like orb of alchemies and or orb of transmutations and stuff. Like there's only so many like white items I can turn magic before it's like, okay, this is just trash. It's more satisfying to do magic to rare for sure. And there's just not enough currency unless you trade to get rich.
That's very
But
true. So like that loot patch, I feel like they made currency drop more for sure, but like I think what maybe it sounds like you wanted is like let's have more currency because we can craft more and that's fun. But like don't
mhm.
just drop a shit ton of items that I need to like sift through because currency is easy to stack and you don't need to like salvage it when you get back to town, right?
Yeah. Or like if you could stack like 50 orb or yeah, orb of augmentations and turn it into an exalted or something.
That would be kind of cool.
Maybe.
Yeah, no,
So
there
like
is
there's so much of those.
there actually is a currency exchange now. I haven't interacted with it a bunch, but it tells you what how many orb of augmentation. So you can actually trade them for an exalt. It's just like a obscene amount, I think like
Oh.
100 or something.
Oh yeah. Dang.
Yeah. I mean, they want that currency to be rare, but I also think people have fun like engaging in the crafting system. And also for solo self-found, you're just fucked. Like, because that's the only
Yeah.
way you get items. So like, if you can't,
Yeah, you just have so much magic items because that's how you can craft because that's all the currency you find unless you find like an exalted here or there
I was on
or
a
a
jog
regal.
earlier and Zizarin's like podcast came up where he was talking about like like what it was like before they did the loot buff and like he was just saying he was having the hardest time ever and because he was playing solo self-found I believe so it was just like he could not
Yeah.
find like any currency, all his items were complete trash, and I think he said he made it to maps with like 7 lightning resistance and just like died, even though dude if you watch him stream that guy is always farming like
Yep.
he is always farming. So if he has a problem with the amount of loot, like I probably would have a problem with it too. But like I think when they did the loot patch, they just overshot like by a ton, like way too far. Like there should have been like an inch given, and they gave like just so much more crap. And like I think it would have been fine if it was more currency, but like since it's like
Hmm.
all rare items that are dropping now, like even in Act One, I just feel like Jesus, I need like a loot filter now. Like there's just too much crap everywhere.
Yeah. I mean, I guess you could collect all the rares and then disenchant them, and then you get currency that way, but it's still like kind of tedious. I actually really don't like disenchanting.
I don't either, actually. Like it feels like a chore, and I feel like I have to do
Yeah.
it to get currency.
Like every time I go to town, I have to do that.
I do too. And then like I also have to go through the like all right, so you identify it at the hooded one. I go over to Una. I look at every single item and like make sure like this thing's not like super awesome. And it takes a
Yeah.
second to like look at each item and try to figure out like is this thing good or not? Like especially trying to
Yeah, it's
consider all the different characters that could use it. And like I don't like having to do that like multiple times within like a single map because if you pick up every rare, like you'll
hmm.
fill up fairly quick now. Like you find a lot of
Yeah.
rares, especially if you're playing in a party, you get a ton.
Hmm.
And I think it's fine. Like I like looking at items, I like getting items. I just don't like doing it all the time. I don't want to be in town every 2 seconds disenchanting. And I
Well,
get
that's
it.
what
Like, or sorry, go ahead.
I think that's what's going to be like the fall of a lot of new players, like beginner players to ARPGs, is because of that. It's like grabbing all this loot and then reading and then throwing away, and you're probably throwing away good stuff. And I don't know, it's just not really engaging.
I
Well,
don't
it
know.
is engaging, but it's just tedious, Tori.
Dude, I don't know if you've seen the Carbot animation of This is Diablo 4, but
Hmm.
oh my God, it's the funniest thing in the entire world because there's this scene where the barbarian grabs a huge pile of loot. So this is an animation you should look up on YouTube. It's called Carbot Animations. This is Diablo 4. If you haven't seen it, it's like the funniest video in the world. Anyways, like it's like the barbarian goes and kills like a big like boss, and like a bunch of loot just shits out everywhere, and he just like grabs a ton of loot and throws it inside his pants. And like his pants are all bulging, goes back to town, and then he starts getting out his reading glasses, like a little eyeglass, and starts looking at each item and comparing it
And
to
it
each
throws all of
other.
it in trash.
Yeah, and then he throws the whole thing in the trash. And that's how I feel like in PoE2 right now. It's because like I just pick up all this crap and put it in my pants, and then I go back to town and all of it's junk. And then I just
Yeah.
disenchant it every time, and it happens so much. And like I get it. Like, all right, if you're zooming the game, this is what you do. You just like ignore everything but rares that are applicable to you. You don't pick up anything else. You dodge roll to the next monster level as soon as you can. You trade to get the item once you get high enough level. Like there's ways to zoom the game, but like I personally
Hmm.
don't want to do that. Like I'm not I don't like rushing to get to end game because end game is not that good right now. Like compared to the campaign. Like why the hell would I rush
Yeah,
through the campaign, you know?
totally.
But yeah, oh man, that cartoon makes me laugh. It's so funny. It's exactly me. I'm just like old man in town trying to read my my attributes and understand what's better than the other item. And luckily, I figured out that basically the best stat in the game is if you get plus skills to anything, like especially for sorceress and infernalist. It's just like, oh, you got a +4 skills wand? That's freaking OP. Just use that, right? Like,
Mhm. Yeah.
um,
But as
that's
like a
another.
beginner player, I'm sure we just like look at all the stats, don't really exactly know what's going on with them, and then we either like hoard them and never look at them again or just trash them, and it could be really good and we don't know,
Yeah, totally.
you know.
And not only that, but like, um, there's some affixes that are just so like they just don't make sense. Like there's increased spell damage, but then you can have more spell damage as well. It's like, why would you use that verbiage? Like, why not just use multiplicative versus plus? Like, just I don't know. Like,
Mm.
it's
Yeah,
like
a
it's
lot of
like
that just goes right over my head.
yeah, it's like mathematics and words, and like I think some of that stuff like it just doesn't need to be complicated. Like you could probably make that like stat just make more sense. You know, I also don't know why they didn't call rarity magic find. Like it's been called magic find in D2. Like this is obviously like a love child of D2. Let's just call it magic find, you know. Although
Yeah,
honestly, rarity of items makes more sense technically if you think about it, because you could drop rares and uniques, not just magic items. But I don't
yeah.
know. Okay, so we have a couple more topics. So we haven't talked about microtransactions yet. Do you feel that this game is pay to win in any way?
No, not at all. It's actually really refreshing that it's not one of the few like modern day games that doesn't have that at all, which is awesome.
Yeah, and I asked that question obviously because not anyone actually thinks that, but I just want to prove a point that it's pretty rare that a game comes out that like isn't
Mhm.
pay to winny nowadays. Like we had Elden
Yeah,
Ring. Um, dude, I don't even know if I can think of other games that are because I'm pretty sure Call of Duty is right. Like the new Call of Duty, like you can buy like scopes and stuff. Like
probably.
I
Yeah,
don't
buy
know,
like certain guns.
I don't know, but like I just want to point out as well that like the game is free and it's probably the best RPG ever made, and they charged you $70 for Diablo 4, right? And like
Hmm.
I just feel like I am so much more willing to spend money in the microtransactions on whatever. I don't care about skins at all, but like I would just give GGG money because like they're amazing developers, versus D4 just took my money and ran, and I hated the game. Like it was just not
Oh,
good,
totally.
Like
Hmm.
just kind of felt like a fuck you to buy that game. Like I like kind of hate I spent money on that game, even though Diablo is my favorite
Dude,
game of all time. Like
well, marketing on that game was insane that they did for that to get people to buy it.
yeah, I know it's like they just spent all the money on advertisements anyway. Have you purchased anything from the store, and what did you buy?
Yeah, so when you buy the early access game, they give you 360 coins, 300 coins, which is pretty generous of them to even give you coins to begin with. Um, but I just bought the currency tab and then like one or two premium tabs. I think maybe two premium tabs, and that was about it.
Nice. Have you sold anything from your premium tabs yet?
Like two things, two or three things.
Nice. How hard was
Yeah.
it to figure out how to trade like from those tabs?
Uh, I just asked you immediately because I don't, I didn't even know you could do that from your tab to begin with. I thought a premium tab was just extra storage for your gear.
Yeah, this is
Like,
something that I really feel like I just showed Brian the other day what the currency tab was, and I just feel like PoE is like one of the few games where it's almost like you need to watch streamers play it to like understand like what you're supposed to do for certain things, because like there's just no real explanation. Like if you're not browsing the microtransaction shop, like how would you even know that there's a currency tab? I'm sure there's lots of people that like aren't willing to look at microtransaction store because they think they're all stupid. But
yeah.
like if they just knew that that tab exists, like you know, I don't know. Like I feel like the I really, really appreciate that they don't just like slam it in our faces. Like there's no pop-up in game that's like, hey, go to the store, blah, blah, blah. Like that'd be horrible. But at the same time, I feel really bad because I feel like they could get a lot more money if there's some sort of way that people could know about those tabs, because I don't think people are like against spending money on the game at all. I just think, I don't know, they just kind of avoid those microtransaction stores because they're really like horrible in a lot of cases.
Hmm.
I guess the fact they
Yeah.
give you coins, maybe people are like willing to go in there because you already have them, right?
Yeah, might as well
Yeah,
spend them on tabs.
yeah. As long as they know they have those coins, I'm sure there's people that don't know.
Yeah, I didn't I didn't until I accidentally hit M on my keyboard and it brought up the shop. I was like, oh, I guess I'll look at the shop real quick because I haven't done that yet. And then
Yeah,
I looked and saw that I had coins. I'm like, oh shit.
yeah. So that's a
Now I have
perfect
to.
example that happened to you. Yeah. So they did explicitly say that when you bought early access, but there's no way anyone read like the whole article they wrote for that.
No.
Um, I mean, that's so generous of GGG to do that. Like, all right, so not only did if you spent money in PoE1, did they actually put in the work to migrate all those databases over to PoE2? Like all the tabs, like can you just imagine the data migrations they had to do just to preserve people's tabs from PoE1? And it's just like it's crazy to me that they like care about people that much. Like any other company would just cash grab you, be like, "Oh, it's a new game, you need to buy new tabs." Like eat it,
Hmm.
but they were
Yeah, true.
like I can't believe they did that. That is like they
Yeah, it's
have to
super
be the
cool.
best, like most altruistic developers in the world, and like I think they built a community by doing things like that, and like I'm like forever just um like at their service from that. Like I don't know, I just think stuff like that really shows like who they are as people. It's like why would you not spend money if that's the type of developer you get? Like I don't know. I think it's
Yeah.
crazy they're giving the game away for free. Like I almost wish they would charge because I think it's the best ARPG ever made, like hands down. I think even
Hmm.
early access, this is the best ARPG ever made. Like yeah, there's
I think
problems with the
people,
game. Sorry, go
yeah.
ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I think people would easily spend $70 on PoE2,
Totally.
but they don't
Yeah.
need to do that. And that, the $30 is very generous of them to give to us.
Well, and it's free. Like, remember, like at the end of the 6 months or a year, it's going to be free for people, which is like,
So true. Which is even crazier.
oh man, it's like hard for me to like, because I want them to just have more revenue too. Like, I don't know.
To
I've been,
continue to make the best ARPG, you know.
yeah, because I mean, if D4 can charge 70, like,
They're doing less than half of that and then
yeah,
cutting it even more in half
yeah, and
to
like
free.
they clearly deserve my $70, so I think I'm just gonna pay them $70 anyways because like, it's just so good.
Just buy all the tabs.
Yeah, just buy all of them. Even buy the skins that I don't care to use. Like,
Just gift them to your friends randomly.
I don't know if you can actually. I've never bought a
Oh,
skin. Hideouts are kind of cool. I'd actually maybe do a
oh
hideout.
yeah.
Um, all right. So, the passive skill tree. Did you have any like issues navigating the passive skill tree in the game? Like, is that actually as daunting as everyone complains about, or
No, I'd say it's approachable enough because it's just like a stepping stone. You just take one node at a time and kind of they make it pretty vague, not vague, but like clear enough to understand like okay, this sounds good. I'll click it and it probably will be good. Like you
yeah,
don't need have to see the end goal. You don't have to follow it to exactly to where you're going. I feel like as you play the game, like oh my character needs more evasion, so I'll go evasion node this time. Oh, I need more dexterity to use this item, so I'll go to the all attributes node.
totally. Yeah,
And
like I feel like the reason people like act like it's so complicated is because they're obsessed with the idea that their build has to be like 100%
like
perfect.
perfect. Yeah.
And like it's like, dude, just try something, just play the game. Like you actually might stumble upon a build that no one's thought of if you're crazy. You know, you might be like, I'm gonna make a sorceress that holds a maul, and then she's gonna smash people, but have a ton of energy shield or something. Like I don't know. Like you can just come up with some crazy shit that might be really good because like I doubt GGG probably has not tested like every single like
It's infinite.
possibility. Yeah, so it's
Yeah.
like you might just stumble upon something crazy, and I think that's what's fun. Is like I've actually done
hmm
that before. I played mostly crappy builds because I come up with my own build every time. Like almost everyone is crappy, but then I came across the totem build for hardcore in PoE1 that we had, and that guy was
hmm
actually like nasty. And I had someone tell me when they came and traded with me in my hideout, they're like, "Dude, you picked the right build for this league." That and I noticed like everyone started going up flame totem, and I was like, "Sick! I
Whoa,
picked the right one."
that's crazy. That's
Someone
cool.
will figure it out because POB and I don't know, POB is cool, but like I also kind of have a problem with it because people just min max with it. It's a there's like a program you can install called Path of Building on your PC where you can like make a fake character basically and like see how much damage they would do and stuff, and
Oh,
people just
yeah.
like sit there and theory craft, which I think is fine. I don't have a problem with it, but I don't want to do that myself. Like I just want to like build in the game. I just want to do things in the game. Like I think anything
On
they
the
do
fly.
outside of the game is not good. And I wanted to bring this up too. Like, so what is your thought about like trading being like a separate website?
Daunting and takes you out of the game, which I don't really want to do. Like you get so immersed in the game and then all of a sudden you're like, oh shoot, I should probably maybe trade because I can't find a new piece of gear that I've been looking for a while. But then you have to alt tab out and then you're out of the game and then you're just sitting there scrolling, trying to find a new item.
And you
And as a
found
new player, I don't even know like what to search really. So I'm just like staring at rares, like kind of blindly pick one.
Totally.
That's, you know.
Yeah, because you said this happened to you, right? Like you spent like a couple exalts on an item that you thought was good, but like you actually didn't have the filters right, and it wasn't that good of an item because
Hmm.
yeah,
I think it's like a really low level item, and I was way higher than it,
yeah.
type of thing.
I honestly think most like you're more advanced than most beginners. I'd almost say you're like intermediate because I think most people don't even know that trade exists. Like I would say like until I showed Brian it or the other people we've been playing with, like they had no clue that you could even trade, other than like to your friends that are in your party, but like they didn't know how to go
Yeah.
trade with other people.
Hmm.
And I think, yeah, even once you know how to go trade, just like you can do so much with that website. Like you need to know a lot to actually use that site like properly. There's all these like little
Hmm.
tips of like sorting things by price and stuff, and I don't know. It's good. It works, but it just makes me want to play SSF. Like I
Hmm.
also don't enjoy leaving the game to go like browse on eBay basically. Like
Yeah, totally.
it's kind of fun looking at items and seeing what they're worth because I mean it's kind of cool to see how the market fluctuates and I like the economy. But I
Hmm.
also just like I just want to play the game and like find an item. So like I really do want to go SSF, but I like party play so much that I just can't do it. And I
Hmm.
think that's why we played trade is just because like if I find something cool, I want to be able to give it to you, you know?
Yeah,
It was
it's
like how
fun.
last night, like we were playing hardcore and we found a life sprig
Yeah,
and you gave it to Brian and all of a sudden he was doing like double damage. It's like hell yeah.
yeah, yeah, it was cool.
So have you done an ascendancy yet?
I think so. I think I did the Witch Hunter, just the first Ascendancy.
What was your
Uh,
experience there?
First time we did it, I think I died like 3 times, maybe even more, and I didn't know why because I couldn't see my life go down until like the third time I realized that there was another bar for honor that was actually my life. So that took some time to like figure out. And then it just like takes so long, like outside of your flow of getting through the campaign. That's like, I don't really want to keep dying. Like, maybe I'll just come back to this later, which I did, you know.
And you eventually beat it, right?
Yeah, like that's like 10, 20 levels over the first time I did it, like successfully.
Totally. Same.
Yeah. I mean, it's cool, like it's a different gameplay style that they incorporated into it, but I think it just takes too long, maybe.
Yeah, I think you're
That's just
right.
like
I think
kind
you're
of,
absolutely right. Like, and it only gets worse because you've just done your first ascendancy, but like,
yeah.
dude, I'm on my third one right now, and I'm on this like fireball build that sucks, and I need to switch to Spark probably and that whole Archmage thing. But like, dude, you have to clear 3 floors in the Trial of Sechamus, and it is just god awful to do because you get so far and there's no checkpoint, and then you lose, and then not only do you lose, you need to go find another level 60 map as well. Like, and then I didn't have any level 60s, so you have to play a level 69 map, and it's just like they it's just not fun. Like I don't enjoy that gameplay. Like it was cool the very first time when I went through it and I was like, "Oh, this is new." Cuz I never played Ultimatum and I never God, what's the other one called? I'm like spacing it now. It's Ultimatum and what is Trial of Sechamus? I don't know. It's a
Um,
league from PoE1. I feel so dumb. I'm
oh,
actually kind of just melted my mind. I know what it is, but um yeah, basically, like it's just terrible. I think everybody agrees it's terrible. Like you get so far down it, and it's just not fun to have to redo the whole thing every time, and you get like no rewards basically too. Like I guess you kind of get those chests at the end, but like they're not very good. Like I even got a gold chest and it was like terrible. It was like I got a rare and two blues, and I
Hmm.
was like I could just go play in a party and kill a boss and get like four times that.
Yeah. Yeah, I've heard so many bad things about the ascendancies that it almost makes me not even care to bother with them right now.
Yeah.
Even with maps too, like just hearing you listening to all these reviews about PoE, and people like complaining about maps and endgame is kind of turns me off a bit to try it because I love the campaign so much. Like I'll just I'd probably be happy just running that over and over.
Yeah, I think they should just make like a really good boss or something. Like I think it's cool they tried to tie it to a league mechanic, but like if you don't like that league mechanic, like it sucks that that's tied to your ascendancy. Like I think they should have made an entirely new
Mm.
concept instead of trying to reuse old leagues to do it. Like um but yeah, I mean I'm just preaching to the choir here. Everybody hates it. Like
Yeah, so like what would make a beginner not hate it too?
um oh yeah, and like Philip hates it, Brian hates it. Everybody in our party that's tried it is like, I haven't even gone back to that because that was horrible. Like they tried it like
Hmm.
once or twice and failed. Like especially if you fail at the molten boss when the volcanoes are like coming up and hitting you. Like you get all the way to the end, you do like eight rooms or whatever. It takes like at least like if you're a new player, it takes you like 15 minutes just to get there. And then
Hmm.
the stupid molten boss destroys your honor, and then you get teleported out, and you're told you have to do it again. Like it's such a fuck you to your time, dude. Like that's the problem
Yeah,
with it is it's just like I mean, like honestly, if you're a PoE player, you're basically saying fuck you to your time, like period. But like it's not a fun way to say fuck you to your time at all. You know, like it's just not like there could be a fun way to ascend, and this is not a fun way to ascend, so like make it fun
yeah.
somehow.
It'd be
Um,
cool if it was like optional too, because it almost doesn't seem like it's optional. Like it almost seems like you have to do it.
I
So
mean, let's
like
be
I
honest,
eventually
you
like
do
slogged
have to
back.
ascend. Like if you want to actually map in any meaningful way, if you
Yeah.
haven't ascended, you're shooting yourself in the foot because like there's a lot of damage and life or defenses you're leaving on the table if you haven't ascended. So like it pretty much isn't optional. Like, because I think that's why I hit a wall at T11 in maps is because I still haven't done my third ascendancy. And I was like,
Mm.
I think I'm at the point that I need to go do my third ascendancy, but I'm gonna hate my life for the next hour. And then, like, I just went to bed after trying like two of them. I got to like the second floor boss and just got like murdered. Like my honor was just gone in like one hit, and then I just like went to bed like
Mhm.
mad. It's like, God damn it! Like, I don't know. And it wasn't mad in a good way because when I lost to Jamonra, like
Mhm.
it was like actually like addicting. I was like, fuck, I gotta go try that battle again. This is just like,
Yeah.
dude, like I gotta go pick up the kids from school type of pain. You know, like like I gotta go do some chore I fucking hate like right now to ascend. Like I don't know. I think that anything that feels like a chore or like is not fun should just be removed from the game. Um or not removed, but like I mean, just make it a league mechanic that people can grind. If people like ultimatums, like fine, but like I don't want to have to do it to ascend, you know?
Mm.
Or I mean,
Mhm.
if they added a new league mechanic that was more interesting, like if it was anything else, like I don't know. That said though, that like the aesthetics of Ultimatum is pretty cool, like the Trial Master and stuff. Like the actual like graphics and like the scene is actually pretty sick. It's just the mechanics, like the gameplay sucks and isn't fun.
Hmm.
And I actually think Ultimatum's more fun than Trial of Segames. Like I like I said, I'm spacing the name of that league because my mind is fried. But Trial of Secondness sucks. Like the honor bar, you don't even know you're getting hit too. Like
Mm-mm.
there's no like your
It's
screen
silent.
doesn't
I
turn
mean,
red or like nothing happens. You're just getting hit, and like you have this little bar
hmm
that's going down next to your XP bar. And like I had the same thing. I didn't even notice it the first time I played it because I didn't know that mechanic.
yeah.
Um, so, anyways, yeah, I think we're just preaching to the choir on this one. Like, but from what I've heard, like everybody hates ascendancies the way they are right now.
Mm.
I think they should be hard. I just don't think they should be like that. That's hard in an unfun way.
Yeah, I haven't even made it there yet, so
Yeah,
that
I
makes
mean
me
the
a little
second
nervous.
one's even hard for some people, and yeah, I've just heard people hate it.
Hmm.
Okay, so we talked about trading already. I'm gonna skip over that. We talked about party play. League mechanics. Other than ascendancies, like we just talked about, have you interacted with any PoE1 league mechanics yet?
Be honest, I don't even know what that means.
Yeah, so I'll just tell you that you have. In Act 1, you've done the ritual mechanic, and that's the boss in that like wood level where you're like on the bridges.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's the when you click it and all the monsters come out and like the black cloud surrounds you.
Oh, okay.
That's actually a league mechanic called Ritual from PoE1, and it's actually
Hmm.
terrible rewards too. Like every ritual I've found in maps is just like, why am I looking at this? Like it's just like junk items that you get from them. It seems like,
Hmm.
and then people have been saying Breach is insane. Um, but yeah, there's more league mechanics in the end game, so I think that's maybe something to
Oh,
look forward to if you ever got there.
yeah.
Um, all right, so I think we're gonna kind of conclude here because I'm out of questions. I guess what is the number one thing you want GGG to change in the game the way that it is now, if it could be anything?
Go back to less loot, I guess. I can't like think of anything like new and revolutionary rather than just like going backwards and like less loot, slower, slower speeds, maybe less monsters.
Nice.
But
That's actually, I think it's gonna surprise people to hear that. Um, because like the only feedback they've been getting has been faster, faster, faster. So it's interesting.
yeah,
What is the number one thing you don't want GGG to change about the game?
I don't want to change. Probably their boss like choreo choreographies. Like the way that they're making the bosses is so good and fun. Like maybe put more in, if anything.
Nice.
But yeah,
I wholly agree for sure. Um,
yeah. Oh, it's a great game.
yeah, I'm really excited that you're enjoying it. I've been trying to get people into this game for a long time, and getting people into ARPGs is like impossible if they didn't grow up playing them. So like the fact that we're seeing people flood into this realm from other games, because I mean you're like a story game player, right? Like Hogwarts Legacy and like Skyrim and like I mean RPG stuff, but like more like single player story stuff. And seeing you
Yeah,
go
Witcher
into like
3.
yeah, Witcher 3. I mean seeing you come into a game like this is just badass. It's cool. Like I'm excited. And I just wanted
Yeah.
to have this interview with you because I've noticed that you were really into it to start with, and then you tapered off for a bit. And I think it was just interesting to like kind of like get your feelings for as you progress through the game, what you liked and didn't like. And I think it'll be valuable feedback if anyone ever sees this video because I sure am
Yeah.
not a big streamer, but I think it was an interesting conversation.
Yeah, I think so too.
Well, thank you for your
Cool.
time, Kaylee. I
Yeah.
guess we'll end it there.
All
Happy New
right.
Year's.
Happy New Year's.
All right, see ya.
Thanks.